Good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Smith and Wesson, get the praise.
So let's learn the Tanya. So today is the 19th day of Elul. We are holding in Iger HaKodesh, Epistle 15, and in today's lesson, an elaboration of the various characteristics, midot, within the human intelligent soul. Midot within the human intelligent souls, the attributes. Now, as regards to the totality of the 10 Sefirot, the 10 manifestations as they appear in the soul of man, it is known to all. But the emotive attributes divide into 7 general categories. Each of the particular attributes in men originates from one of these 7 attributes. For they are the root of all the attributes and their generality. Namely, midat chesed la'ashpia b'li gvul, the attribute of chesed, loving kindness, which is a thrust to diffuse benevolence to all without limit. That's what chesed wants, to give and give without limitations. Then comes the opposite, midat ha'gevura letzamtzem la'ashpia kol kach o shelo la'ashpia klal, the attribute of gevura, which seeks to restrain such a degree of diffusion, or to withhold diffusion altogether, either to withhold it, why now, maybe later, and or not to do it at all. Then comes the third one, umidat harachamim, the attribute of mercy, compassion, lerachem al mi sheshayach lashon rachmanut alav, to pity a person whom compassion is appropriate, meaning there's no compassion for everyone, for those who are deserving it, those who need it, and to extend benevolence to him as well, although he may be unworthy of it. Rachamim is the mediating attribute between Gevurah and Chesed. That's the middle. Chesed wants to give non-stop, Gevurah wants to restrict non-stop, and mercy is in the middle, trying to find a balance between kindness and severity. Right? That's why we said the attribute of Avraham was Chesed, Yitzchak is Gevurah, and Yaakov is the combination of both. The head both. The latter, which would diffuse benevolence to all, even to a person to whom compassion is not at all appropriate, inasmuch as he lacks nothing and is in no state of trouble whatsoever. Because the attribute of chesed is unlimited. So it desires to benefit even someone who lacks nothing. Even a multi-billionaire, chesed wants to do chesed with him also. He doesn't need anything, but chesed would still want to give him. By contrast, being also compounded of gevurah, that's mercy, rachamim, will not seek to diffuse indiscriminately. At the same time, rachamim pleads the cause of any individual who is in a pitiable state, is in a pitiable state, however unworthy he may be. So rachamim can have rachamim on anyone, but it has to be in a state that requires rachamim. So it could be a wealthy man, but maybe he doesn't have children. So rachamim would have compassionate on that wealthy man that doesn't have children, and another person that don't have good marriage, another person. Each one would have compassion according to his need. Because the attribute of rachamim is the mediating attribute, it is called tiferet, beauty. That's why it's called beauty, because it's in the middle. It tries to bring everything together, try to put things in perspective, to do things in a level, balanced way. It's not extreme to this side, it's not extreme to the other side. By analogy with beautiful garments. What is beautiful garment? It's not black and it's not white. It has multicolors. Beautiful garment. Chesed is white, Gevurah is like black or red. So you have
like red.
two dark colors, two extreme colors, comes Tiferet and tries to say, okay, we'll have something in between. We'll have more colorful. We're going to have Moravim, which are dyed with many colors, blended in a way that gives rise to beauty and decoration. And on the other hand, but if the garment has only one color, then that's no beauty. You can't call it Tiferet, it's not afterward, once the attribute of either Chesed, going back to the attributes, Chesed or Gevurah, which remember, these are the primary attributes, or Tiferet, is aroused to dispense benevolence as the diffusion is realized. That is, at the time of the actual diffusion, it is necessary to deliberate how to diffuse in such a way that the recipient will be able to absorb the effusion. So Chesed alone would just give Chesed. Whether the recipient is ready to receive it or not. Same thing with Gevurah. Would diffuse Gevurah whether the recipient is ready or not. Tiferet is the kidneys, we call it Klayot Yoatzot, is the advising kidneys, meaning they're in the middle to try to figure out a way how to give it. Even if, assuming it's agreed upon to give, Tiferet would be the one to say, okay, we have to do it this way, and we have to do it that way. You don't want to embarrass the guy and give it to him in such a way, or if you're going to give it to him, maybe he wouldn't be able to handle it, so you figure out a way to do it. For example, when one wishes, and this is a powerful desire, to convey and teach an intellectual subject to your son. You have a great desire to give your son, to teach your son an intellectual subject. Now, if you're going to say it the way you understood it, he might not understand it. He's still young, but you really want to teach it to him. So if he's going to say it as is, he wouldn't be able to take it. This could happen either because the concept as understood by the father is too abstract and subtle for the son and needs to be lent a more tangible garb, such as a parable. That's why we use analogy and parables. Number two, because the concept is too comprehensive and too diverse and needs to be broken down into digestible segments. The two reasons why you wouldn't be able to just inject it, give it to him as is. Either it's too abstract, or number two, because it's too vast, and you have to break it down.
To what?
It's vast, it's broad.
It's too wide.
Yeah.
There's too much for him to handle, and his little vessel can't handle a big vessel.
So rather, one needs to arrange it for him in a different order and context, such as by providing an example from an alternative context. Every word fittingly spoken, presenting first one side of the issue at hand and then other. Me'at, little by little, a little of the concept at a time. This deliberation regarding how best to present the concept is referred to by the terms netzach and hod. Shehen kelayot yoatzot. These attributes are the kidneys that advise in a manner similar to their physical counterpart. The gam tevin beina mevashlim azer, and they are also, in spiritual terms, the two testicles that prepare the
spermatozoa.
The sperm. Like their physical counterpart, the attribute of netzach and hod adapt the effusion of the concept. The drop that issues from the brain. This is just an analogy, obviously. That is, they adopt the intellectual subject deriving from the fathers, from the wisdom, from the mind, in such a way that it will not issue unmodified as a very subtle concept in his brain and intellect. But that it changed somewhat from its subtality or subtlety, from its sensitiveness or refinedness of his intelligence, and becomes somewhat less subtle concept, to make it a little more
appealing, understand.
physical,
Right,
so
you
people
can
can relate to it. Who was the giant of parables? It was King Solomon. 3,000 parables. Why? Because to him it was great wisdom, so he had to.
You could understand
break
things
it down for people to understand what he wants. So the son will be able to understand it in his mind and understanding. This is truly analogous to the seminal drop which descends from the brain. When it comes from the brain, it's very tenuous. V'naset gasan, as it travels down, it becomes more physical, corporeal. This process parallels the progressive concretization of a concept, making it concrete, as it descends to match the capacity of the recipient. So sometimes you have to lower it for the recipient to understand. The Alter Rebbe now speaks of yet another function of the attribute of Netzach and Hod, separating a concept into its various components. V'gam Netzach ve'Hod nikraim shechakim ve'rechaim shechakim al tzadikim. Netzach and Hod are also referred to as grinders and millstones, because they grind the manna for the righteous. What does that mean? Like the heaven, which is named shechakim, the heaven is called shechakim, for it grinds the manna for the righteous. For example, a person who grinds wheat with millstone, crumbles it into very fine parts. So too does the father needs to taper the insight or the intellectual subject he wishes to convey to his son. It has to taper the insight. You have to tell him to slowly, give it to him in portions. You can't give it to him the whole thing in one shot. Dividing a concept in this way, so as to be able to determine what should be presented and what should be withheld, which information you're keeping to yourself and which information you're giving. Sometimes they ask you to speak about a subject, and you go into the subject to prepare it, you see the subject is very vast, right? It's very wide. There's so much on this subject. So what do? You have to pick and choose which parts you're going to speak about. Once they asked me to speak about the Rambam's philosophy on food, on diet. I started looking into it, and I saw this tremendous amount of information. Can't give it to people in half an hour, 45 minutes. So what do? So I have to pick and choose. So the Alter Rebbe tells you over here that this picking and choosing comes from your attributes of Netzach and Hod. They're helping you to decide, to sift through the information. You might not make the best decision of what information you're conveying, but that helps you to what message you want to give and so on. Dividing a concept is in this way, so as to be able to determine what should be presented and what should be withheld, is a contraction of the concept's depth. Netzach and Hod serve to contract its length, breadth, and depth, the concept in all its dimensions. Another aspect that the Netzach has is to win, like from the word lenatzeach, nitzachon, to be victorious. You have, number one is you want to give your son information. Number two is, how do I give it to him? Chesed wants to give. Compassion decides, mercy decides how to give it. More, not really how, it's more like when,
what capacity,
when and how much.
How strong.
And comes Netzach and says, not only that I'm going to figure out which portion I'm giving him and which portion I'm not giving him, I'm also going to protect him from anyone who tries to stop him from learning. Right? I'm sure you can remember that your parents told you, oh, don't play with this guy. If they notice that a friend is not, maybe your children have a friend that is not a good influence, they'll say, oh, stay away from this guy. It's because in their mind they see, oh, this kid is going to interrupt the learning of your son, so you want to keep him away from those kids that are not going to help him. Instead of they can drag him to the other side. You want to make sure he's in good hands, has good friends, he's in good environment. So that comes also from nitzachon, from netzach, that withhold from his son the transmission of beneficial influence or learning. Whoever stops your children from beneficial information, you want to try to protect them. That's also from netzach, nitzachon. From within means firmly resisting the attribute of gevura and tzimtzum within the father himself. For it arouses within his will contentions against his son. Arguing that his son, I'm sure as a teacher you probably noticed, try to tell the parents, your son is not yet ready for my class. Oh, I feel your son is behind. A lot of parents, they cannot handle it.
What? How dare you?
Yeah.
Who do you think you are?
My son.
Well, you know anything about my kid? You don't know nothing. My kid's a genius. You crazy rabbi.
So exactly why? That's the netzach. That's the netzach within them. It says exactly, for it arouses within all its contentions against his son, arguing that he is not yet fit for this profound knowledge. There now follow a parenthetical note in the text which states, a note in the manuscript's omission. According to some of the manuscripts which were compared to the previous printed editions of Igeret HaKodesh, when the current edition was being prepared, publication, there's an omission here in the text. Alter Rebbe goes on to explain the attribute of Yesod. So we spoke about Netzach and Hod, and I'll speak about Yesod. Yesod is the foundation, that's the translation of Yesod. Yesod is more of an attribute that is involved with the connection that one has with his son. Father has with his son comes from Yesod. The category of Yesod is, by way of example, the bond which the father binds his intellect to the intellect of his son. When you teach your son, you have deep desire that he would understand what you want.
No.
With someone else, he doesn't want, he's not there, you feel like he's not really getting it, so he's not getting it. It's his loss. He's not getting the information. Professor gives a class, if some of the students are not paying attention, so not paying attention. It's their fault, not mine. Okay, I do my thing, I move on, get paid, and that's it. I'm not going to be they're going to be tested. So if they're not ready, they're not ready. Over here, it says the father has a desire that his son would understand.
No.
While teaching him with love and willingness, for he wishes his son to understand. ובלעדי זה גם היה בן שומע דיבורים עצמם פי אביו ולומד בעדו ולומד לעצמו לא מבין כל כך כמו עכשיו. Says if the son just sits down and he hears the father's learning, let's say you're learning out loud, he would not understand it. שאביו מקשר לא היה מבין, he would not understand them as well as now when he directly trying to teach him, שאביו מקשר זכרו מדבר עם הפנים, but when his father binds his intellect to him and speaks with him face to face with love and desire. Because he desires very much that his son understand. This also teaches us that if you really want your children to listen to you, you have to show them how much you love them. Because it says love enables when the the daughter, they feel that you really love them, they want to take from you. They want to receive from you. It's like you can't force someone to take from you something. But if you love them, they would want to take it from you. Obviously, we all love our kids, but if you show them that you love them, If you don't show them, if you show them that you're strict with them all the time, they start to think, they start to doubt your love to them. And if they doubt your love to them, they don't want to receive from you. I don't care how nice and how much you want to give them. Deep inside, he's giving me a car, he's giving me a house, but he doesn't love me. He's just doing it to feel better about himself. You want your children to really receive from you, the Rabbi tells you, got to show them how much you love them. And if you really love them, they will take from you anything you give them. You want to teach them how to, what type of a wife to choose for themselves. You want to teach them how to treat other people. You want to treat them like a lot of good things that would help them to thrive in life, like the real things that would help them. I mean, if a child grows up with a bad attitude, he's screwed.
Yeah.
I don't care how smart he is, he's screwed.
That's it.
Because nobody is going to like to be in his company. People would hate him. Do you agree or do you disagree?
I agree.
Someone that has a bad attitude about life, he's always complaining, he's always kvetching, nothing is good enough. I just heard from a guy in Israel. He was working very hard. He's a comedian, he works very hard. So he said, he decided he goes on vacation. Like 10 days he goes on vacation. So he flies with his friend to Thailand. And he said, my friend is the type of a guy that nothing is really perfect. Even if the flight left on
Doesn't
time,
matter. There's always
there's
a problem.
always something to complain.
Something is always wrong. Right.
So he says, finally I make it to the island in Thailand. We go.
Beautiful.
I see the beach in front of me.
Perfect.
He said, I'm usually scared of water, but I decided I'm going in. He said, I go into the water.
His friend?
It's magical. It's beautiful.
Oh.
His friend walks in and he said, you heard that there is a statistic that you can get bitten by so and so.
That's always a problem.
That's it. He left the water.
That's it. I'm done. I don't came all the way here. I'm not even going swimming. Came 1,000 miles. I don't even want to know the water. Let me on the beach.
To go on,
He killed him.
sharks. Oh, no. Can't go to water. Sharks.
It's always a problem.
That's it.
Stingray. The jellyfish.
Jellyfish, yeah.
Jellyfish.
Anyhow, so you get the point.
No.
So the father does not merely want to enlighten his son. His desire stemming from Yesod, the father is not just trying to give him information. What the father is truly trying to do is to bond with his son. And there's no greater bond than transmitting intellect. Your intellect, your way of thinking, you're giving it to your children. That's why I have to be careful what we give them. Because if your message to your kids is, for example, fear, that's what they will grow with. Always gotta watch my back. There's always something. It's gotta be this. Look back. Don't look forward. Look back. See what's happening. Depends. We have to be very careful what we are transmitting to our children. And if you are screwed, we are screwed. But at least our children, we gotta be careful what we give.
You know, they say after like 5 or 6, they become like a tree in the ground. Now you got to deal with the tree that you have. You have to prune it because once the foundation is there, it's in. So I'm working with a tree.
When they're young,
likes
you can still mold it.
It's
When the
very
tree is
tough.
old, bless you.
Very tough. I give him a lot of
When
love.
the tree is old, that's it.
That's it. He's rooted.
Yeah, but a lot of love is your.
You know,
a lot of love means your attention, not necessarily.
It's
your
tough. I keep out. I would everything.
Understand, but I'm just.
And the kid likes to walk around like he's like me. I'm like, no. I'm in the garage. I'm sweating. Put on the tzitzit. Put on the yarmulke. Do that. It's very tough with this kid, but I'm working on it.
Put an AC in the garage, and you can.
That's probably the thing to do. Is AC in the garage. Yeah. I like to sweat. I'm not skinny. I'm not like you. You know, I'm trying to get the.
That's another reason to cover up.
You
So anyhow, it says the father does not merely want to enlighten his son. His desire is stemming from Yesod, and Yesod wants to bond. It's powerful because it is driven by pleasure, and whatever is driven by pleasure has a higher level of conviction. The reason why we are motivated many times to do things because we can picture the pleasure that it would lead to. Right? A lot of people work hard. Why they work very hard? Because they say, "Oh, I'm going to buy a boat," and they picture in their mind that they'll be they're going to be fishing, and they'll sit there and they'll listen to music, and they can even see the container already with the beer prepared. So all of it is and because of that pleasure, they were willing to work extra hours and really even inflict pain on themselves just to get to the oneg, to get to the pleasure. So, the holy handwriting of the Tzemach Tzedek of blessed memory, in the discourse entitled Ki Yadativ, where the passage is quoted the above words. The reason for this omission, not only is there a difference between A, what the son passively absorbs, now this is passively absorbs, when he hears his father studying independently, and B, what he absorbs when his father actively teaches him, but even when the father is actually teaching, the presence or absence of the quality of his sword, listen to this carefully, the presence or absence of the quality of his sword will determine whether or not his son's mind will be ignited by the fire of his own desire to communicate. Meaning, translate the simple words, he said before that in order for him to really receive, you have to have love, right? You have to show love. Number two, you have to have, we said owning, right? Desire by owning. Now, if it's coming from pleasure, meaning if you enjoy it, not doing it because you have to do homework with him.
You like it.
If you really enjoy it, that will determine how he's going to take it. If you have pleasure in it. That's what he means to say. But even when the father is actually teaching, the presence or absence of the quality of his sword, which is the pleasure, the bond, will determine whether or not his son's mind will be ignited by the fire of his own or not. The more, the greater the desire and the light. So the flow will be greater. That the child will be able to receive more and the father will be able to give more. Through the intellect, through the cheshek, through the desire and delight, the his mind is expanding, is able to receive more. To give over, to teach his son. We see it in physical situations. To understand the concept that there's more flow that comes in certain situations if there's more desire, more passion. So, through which much is elicited from the brain, which is the source. And this is why the Kabbalists use the analogy of a physical union to this giving over intellect. Now, these emotive attributes are the external aspect of the soul. So far, we're just dealing with the external aspect. Within the external, you have in it embedded the inner. The outer has the inner. What is the inner? Is the love and fear. This may be compared to the case of a father who bestows enlightenment upon his son because of his love for him. The internal aspect of the attribute involved is love, and the external aspect is kindness. And where do you hold back your giving? Is when you have fear. And withholds his influence because of his dread and fear lest his son come into some downfall heaven forfend. The source and root of these internal and external emotive attributes, where does it all come from? From its wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of one's soul. And this is very interesting, it says, your intellect, your midot can show how much intellect you have. Your emotive attributes would show, usually what do we see if people get angry, or they become happy, or they become
the short face.
So it says this is their midot. Either they're excited, or they're upset.
How they are.
So their midot, it can show their intellect. For example, if someone gets upset from something very tiny, it shows his intellect, where his mind is. Somebody moves his book, someone moves his chair, he gets upset. So the midot shows your intellect. And the more intellect you have, the more your midot can handle like people can insult you and say, "Go about your day, nothing."
You are more lucky than it.
Because you see the bigger picture.
It doesn't bother you.
You don't go into that little, he's a
You're like Hillel.
What he's gonna say. It's much of a broader way of looking. Like it's an ego eye. It's not looking at the
one little thing.
So that's what he said. For a person's emotive traits are in proportion to his intellect. That's why a baby can make a whole fuss about chocolate, about tiny little things. But the older he becomes, the less fuss he makes.
Like a big baby.
He wants chocolate now. This is emperor.
Baby.
So this is evident with a child, for example, whose chokhmah bina dat are in a state of pettiness. He's still growing. All his emotive traits too relate to insignificant things. You ask him, "Do you want a keys to a car or you want chocolate?" He'll go for the chocolate. And as he matures in age and understanding, his emotive traits correspondingly aspire to worthier goals. V'gam begdolim, lefi sichlo yulel ish, and says even with adults, King Solomon tells us in Proverbs, the emotive traits develop in proportion to the intellect. Your emotions are proportion to your intellect. According to his intelligence is a man praised. And only they praise a person by his intelligence. For the extent of his love and kindness corresponds to the extent of his wisdom. And all his other internal and external traits likewise have their source in his chokhmah bina dat. Vaikar, and the most important thing from we have chokhmah bina dat, what is the primary thing? Is the dat. Most important to the development of the spiritual emotions is one's dat, which derives from one's chokhmah and bina. It is this faculty that is critical to the development of his midot, such as spiritual emotions of love and awe of God. For dat provides them with their substance and vitality, as explained part 3. So this is a very crucial point, that you can be extremely smart. Chokhmah can be amazing. Your bina can be amazing. But if your dat is not there, that means you are unable to connect the things that you know to the reality that you're living in, to the situation. So you can understand godliness, you can learn all the Hasidic discourses and know them by heart and really deeply understand them. But if you don't connect it with the emotions, you don't know how to bring it to the emotions, it's not going to change you. It's not going to affect your day-to-day's action. So that is extremely important, of bringing and connecting and bonding your intellect with your emotions. And obviously your emotions are going to be different as they are infused with deep intellect, rather than haphazard someone that is very impulsive. So there is not much thinking, as emotions are just spiraling up, or they're just sparks that are coming out. So, in the last point he says this is readily observable, for the differences between the emotive traits of various people corresponds to the differences in their respective degrees of dat. So you can see how people react differently is because their dat is different. Mm-hmm. The quality of mercy is a beautiful attribute to have. If somebody has mercy, it says one of the 3 signs of Jewish people, they have to have Rahmanim, right? Gomlei Chasadim, which is also connected to Rahmanim.
If not, check your lineage.
And by Shanim, and they're also people that have busha, they have embarrassment, they're shy, they're not very bold. As panim legenom, person is too bold, doesn't have busha, he's paving his way to Gehenna. So the main thing is by Shanim and Rahmanim, so Rahmanut. The quality of mercy is a beautiful attribute to have. You have compassion in your heart. It allows you to give with discipline. Your kindness will be on display while you temper it with the perfect amount of constraint. Perfect amount of constraint. Baruch Hu. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi. That was excellent. Thank you. Baruch Hashem.